Ready?
Yes.
Let's go then. Thank you very much for joining me today again. Another podcast. I lost count of the podcast I recorded. I think it's the 23rd or 24th for this program. I've been talking for a while in quite a lot of different things that are more driven by NGOs, by organizations that are acting on some of the topics we want to bring. So in this new series, I'm bringing is the second guest, and the second Portuguese one is, I trust, is purely coincidence, but nevertheless, I'm trying to bring more individuals that are doing something on their own to bring social awareness, social impact on things that are obviously relevant to our society. So I had Ricardo the last podcast. Now I have Catarina with me. And before we jump into whatever you're trying to do, maybe it's just time for you to let us know who you are, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Catarina Marques Rodrigues. I'm a journalist focused in gender equality, human rights, LGBTI issues, and minorities. But I'm also a host and moderator and a speaker about these issues and about the media coverage on human rights. And I'm also an activist, though I think like the three of them are always mixed together in my daily life. So I am a journalist because I believe in the power of journalism, the power of storytelling, of telling stories about people who are voiceless. And I believe that also can be a form of activism because you choose the issues that are being covered, you choose how to cover them. And I was a kid, I remember I was a kid, and in school I was always that girl that was arguing with the kids that were making fun of someone who were like wearing glasses, or because someone was too fat or too skinny. Inequality has always made me very angry because I didn't understood why they were happening, you know, like you saying that someone has less opportunities because they are women, or because they are black, or because they have some kind of disability. That didn't make sense to me. So I always try to fight against it in a personal level, but also in my professional level.
So when I was looking, was doing my 7.5 minute research of my guests, I came across your website. So you said that you wanted to be lawyer or the parliament. So that is something that you already had in your mind for quite a while, right? Because those are usually things that are kind of impactful to the society in terms of lawmaking, in terms of changing people's life. Where is that coming from? Is that coming from your youth, where you had that mindset, or there is some references you had from your family? Where is that coming from?
Yeah, some people might say that it was like an utopic vision that I had, but I was imagining myself in the parliament, you know, like defending those who are being discriminated. I was always also imagining myself in the courts, you know, like winning some kind of very hard case in which someone was being punished for something they didn't do, or because they were like being, you know, harassed, or some kind of form of discrimination. I grew up in a small village in Portugal, in the center.
Okay.
So it's 2 hours from the capital, from Lisbon. And Portugal is a really small country, as you know. I grew up in a small village in which I, like, for maybe 18 years, I didn't saw a black person, I didn't saw a transgender person. You knew that there were like 2 or 3 kids that were gay, but they didn't show up as gay because they knew that it could be dangerous, and because they knew that their families could suffer from some kind of discrimination for having a kid that was gay. So I think it's not something that came from my family, because I think I can say that I came from a kind of conservative family, like many families in Portugal. But I think it's something that just was born with me, you know. And then as I started to realize that that I started to meet more people. Then I came to Lisbon to go to college when I was 18 years old, and at that time I started to meet different people, and then I realized that the things that I was seeing, like I think no one likes inequalities, but for me it was something really strong, you know. It was something like within me. So I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer first when I was a kid. I'm sorry, I'm mixing it up. But I decided I wanted to be a lawyer. But then I realized that I really wanted to be a journalist because I always loved to tell stories. And I realized that journalism has a really great power, and it can do great things, but it can also do really bad things. So I always liked to talk and to write and to do like video shows and to do like to try to do some podcasts when I was a kid. So I decided that I would be a journalist, and I would choose stories about human rights rather than economics or politics or sports. So my goal is always trying to find something that is not solved, trying to find something that is like undercovered, and try to bring it to the public, to the audience, you know. But to answer your question, I don't think it's something that came from my family. I think it's something that was born with me. And then as soon as I realized that it was something that was not going to be solved in 2, 3, 4 years, and I think actually it's something that in some countries and in some ages is getting stronger. I decided that it's like a life mission, you know. For me, it's a life mission.
Yeah, I just fully understand. You know that I have I don't know if I have it here. I don't have it here. I left it in the living room. I use very thick glasses, so -16 or -6.5. So it's like people usually have like -10 and they have very thick. I have -16, which is really, really thick. So I know exactly what is.
Yeah. You know, I remember like I had colleagues that they were too fat, whatever that means, but they were too fat and they were bullied. I had a colleague of mine, she was too skinny and she was bullied. And you know, like in Portuguese, and I know that also in English, people are very smart to find names to bully others, you know?
We love to label.
And I was like, yeah, go ahead.
We love to label things. That's the thing.
Exactly. And like for some things, it's very hard for us to think and to match. But when we are about to make fun of someone, then we can like just do it and find some new words to call someone, you know. And I was like, okay, so she's too fat, she's bullied. She's too skinny, she's bullied. She has braces, she's bullied. You know, she has a big nose, she's bullied. And I was like, so the thing is, there is no perfect person, there is no perfect body, there is no perfect shape. You are always in a way to be bullied. You always will have some characteristic that will be seen by the others as something bad, as something that should not exist, you know. And I believe that diversity is a really great thing, because when you try to empower others and when you try to create a diverse world, you are using the full potential.
You know that I few weeks ago, I forgot, my memory is getting. Since I'm in lockdown, I kind of stopped thinking about the days, and so I think it was already like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was in a university in Utrecht to talk about leading distributed and diverse teams. And it's funny because they were expecting me, and this is a bit controversial what I say, but a lot of people is expecting me to talk about having a team in India and a team in Netherlands and a team in part of the team in Portugal and whatever parts of the world I have in 16 different countries. And they were asking me to talk about that. Right? And I came there and I said, you know, I don't really believe much in diversity being purely country or nationality. For me, diversity has also a lot to do with the way you think, the way you are positioned in the world. And you can have two white traditional family coming from a very conservative family in the north of Portugal and be entirely different in the way you think, the way you you act, the way you, and of course, this is not necessarily correct when you think about the bigger issues we have in equality, and I'm not saying that those are not to be told. I'm just saying that we are also today we also end up putting a lot of labels and things.
And also because, like, as we were saying, you can have two kids from the north of Portugal, but they consume different things, and they also have different visions, so I have a sister and we are totally different, in many things, and we both of us grew up in the same house with the same parents. But the diversity for me means that everyone in the world, wherever you were born, wherever your country is, wherever you are living, wherever your age, wherever the color of your skin, everyone feels that they have the right to talk. They have the right to be there. They can, if they want, they can be there. And the thing is, the things as they are now, it's just a small group of us that have the opportunity to occupy some space in the politics and the economics, So, for example, talking about media, because I'm a journalist, when you think about an expert, for example, we are facing the COVID-19 crisis. If you think about an health expert, you will think automatically of a man on his 50s.
Correct.
You never think about a woman on their 30s, for example.
Correct.
And you have plenty of women, they are on their 30s, and they have already a degree, a master, 10 years of professional experience. They were like in many countries of the world. Some of them are already teachers. You know what I mean?
So we stereotype a lot, right?
Exactly. No, and the thing is, we are also lazy to think about the others. For example, I'm the producer of a TV show, and I need an expert to talk about something. I will think about the guy that went here last year when there was like some kind of special flu. I will not think about let me try find someone and that can also be an expert, but it's not like in the screens because they don't have the opportunity to be there. They cannot dream about being there.
Correct. But and I think you are touching things that I'm a sociologist by education. Not necessarily I'm a sociologist by profession, but I do a lot of work in social research and try to figure out how societies come together and how micro societies come together. So this COVID-19 is like a dream come true for me to think about how are we dealing with that and how are we interacting with each other, which is probably a topic for another podcast. But there is something for me that is quite fundamental, and that's the role of the media. And not necessarily the journalist himself or herself or the profession of the journalist, but rather the role of the media in this overall thing, right? So how many times do we hear in prime time media talking about things related to LGBT, for example?
Yeah.
It's all, we are very driven by the basic consumption, that what the person wants to consume very quick, because that's what gives you the clickbait, right? And that is for me the fundamental problem is, and I'm happy that I did not even know that we had journalists fully dedicated to this type of work. Well, I knew that we had it, but I did not know that this was happening so obviously. So I always thought was more general type of work which was being done by the media, and that's also good. But the fact that I don't know, maybe a lot of other people also doesn't know, and also makes that not explore it, right? And that's probably one of the reasons.
Yeah, I think because like the TV directors or the TV producers, they always choose what they think the majority will buy, you know, and what they think will fit the majority of people, you know. So, for example, if you want to do a piece about LGBTI issues, unless it's something about like a big crime or something that has something to do with politics, like a new law that is being passed or something like that, or something about those issues. Talking about LGBTI issues is something that the TV producers believe will not feed the majority of the people, because the majority, for example, in Portugal is heterosexual, the studies say, and also Catholic. So people are more interested, they say, in economics, in politics, in sports, a lot about sports, But I also believe that because we don't give it to them, because we don't give it more information about human rights, we don't do like more special news pieces about LGBTI issues, about people with disabilities, because we don't give it to them, they are also not interested, because I believe if they were given more information about these issues, more stories, people like talking about their lives, people showing us how they live, showing us their contexts, I believe that people would get more interested, and then we would give it more and more and more. So we also shape the mindsets.
Correct. We 100%, right? So we live in a society that it's a lot of those things are still in Portugal, like just happens to the others and in other countries, and like we don't have homosexual. Well, we have a lot less than Netherlands, because Netherlands they have a lot more. I always hear this. In Netherlands they have a lot more homosexual than in Portugal. I don't know how do they get to the conclusion, but they get, because in the Netherlands this is a completely normal thing to talk about, right? There is no one even talks about it as a topic. It's on the news. Is if there is a manif outside, they will go. There is the colorful thing. Everyone joins. The companies join. It's part of the culture to not take it as an additional thing that we want to sell. It's just something we talk, and the country is more open-minded in some things. Of course, it has also other things that are not necessarily correct, but those things are part of people's day-to-day consumption. They consume this information and they want to know more about it. And it's not just LGBTI. We also have a lot of discussions here in the country about the gender inequality. So female, male gender, and of course, there's a lot of politics and cliches around these things that we need. Sometimes we don't necessarily want to change it. We just want to make it look like good for the boards and for the public companies. So we have a 50-50, and that's where one of the things I wanted to pick your brain is, what do you think is changing in people's mindset and companies and information in regards to this gender inequality? Do you think we are effectively changing, or we are selling a change mostly because people want to see it? And I'm talking, for example, companies. Are we effectively making companies be more equally gender-wise, or are we just selling that we are trying to do it just because nowadays we have to do it, otherwise we don't look to be in that direction? What is your perspective of the world you have been talking to a lot of people?
Yeah, so I think companies now are willing to change, and they are changing because they know that now this is a hot topic. With movements like Black Lives Matter and Me Too, for example, that has had like a huge impact in the world. And for example, Me Too has had like many news pieces in, I believe like 60% of the countries in the world, including Portugal. I think now the big companies know that there's no other way around. Like you really have to go that way, because you have like universities saying that they need more women in the STEM issues like science, technology, maths. You have many laws being approved now in Portugal and in other countries to fight inequality. You have like many appeals from the United Nations, for example, that this has to end of being like an issue. This has to be solved. It's a human rights question. It's not something that you can choose to do or not. It's human rights, and it's also pure smart use of your resources, of your human resources. And I believe that companies, it's also a question of like good brand, because when you have the label of gender equality, you also attract more partners. You attract more women, of course, but you attract more partners. You can partner with some big organizations that work for those issues, for the SDGs, for example. And the companies are also realizing that that is good for their brand. But I believe that as soon as they start to include more and more women, they will understand that in 5 years, 6 years, um, the work on a daily basis will change a lot, because there's many studies done about like what a woman's brain, a girl's brain and a boy's brain, if there are difference or not. But the thing is, the mix of them can join the mental capacities, the emotional capacities, the intellectual capacities,
Complement, right?
Exactly. So I believe that they are doing that because it's good for their brand, of course, but they also know that they cannot just ignore it anymore.
Yeah, but let's forget the companies, where I think the exposure to media, exposure to information studies, it's way bigger, right? So a company like Mars, for example, we have people just investigating and researching what should be the right setup for a board, right setup for a team management, a leadership team. What for me is still very unknown is, for example, let's look at Portugal. Portugal has, I think, 2 million people in around Lisbon, probably a million around Porto, and then you have
Lisbon, a million and a half.
Yes, then you have like probably 5-6 million that are outside of these two big cities. And a lot of these places are, we have older generations, we have people that don't necessarily consume the same level of information that we consume. And I don't want to be stereotyping myself, so I'm just going under a massive assumption. How do you think these topics are being perceived in smaller communities, in smaller areas of Portugal, for example? And I tell you why I'm asking. I'm coming from a place that has 3,000 people in the north of Portugal. And I have never heard Esposende.
Okay, yeah.
And I have never heard, in probably 33 years of my life, anytime I'm there, I have never heard anything about these type of discussions.
Yeah, no, sure. And of course, I work in Lisbon. I work for the TV public service broadcasts. So I'm like in a really privileged context to talk about these issues. And even I'm here, there are still people that don't find it important or like something that has to be treated, or something that has to be solved. But in the small villages of Portugal, including mine and including yours, this is not an issue, So you still have women that spend their weekends cooking, washing the dishes, cleaning the floor, cleaning the house, and their husband is on the couch really enjoying the weekend, because that's what the weekends are for, but just for the men, not for the women. For my whole life, I've seen my mother working on the weekends, like cooking for all of the week, soups and like some big dishes with like some really great meat and fish, and like trying to get it sorted in the house, tidying up everything. And my dad was like enjoying going to the coffee place. Yeah. Like going to our garden, treating our garden. So, and it still happens, and that is being seen as normal, both for the men, but also for the women. It's how things are being done for ages. So for them, it's what they should do. You were saying something?
No, I was just about thinking about what you were saying.
Yeah, and there are also many young girls like me, but they grew up there, and they didn't went to college, so they stay there, and they are following the same path, So when they are on their 24, 25 years old, if they have a boyfriend, they start to think about getting married, yes. And then they build a house near to their mother's house, and then it's the same thing. Then they get pregnant, and there is nothing wrong with wanting to have kids and staying at home with your kids. If that's your choice. The thing is, many times it's not a choice. It's just how things were being done, how your parents tell you that you have to do it yourself, and you just follow that path. And then it happens sometimes when you are on your 40s, you start thinking, okay, so I have at least 40 more years of life, and what I've done is just this: taking care of my husband, taking care of my kids, taking care of the house, and that's all.
Yes.
And gender equality is not an expression that you hear on the conversations, or that they think about, or me, like sometimes I'm there with my parents and with my grandmothers and grandfathers, and I start talking about these issues, or like I say something like, why are you doing this? And the grandpa is just there, like he's not doing anything, he should help you, huh? And they're like, Catarina, there you go again with your ideas.
Let me interrupt you and ask you a question, because I think, don't you think that that's a lot to do with the fact that the women are not being educated to think that they have the same value, the same rights, and they don't have to do that unless they want it, right? And I think I look to my mom, for example, and my grandma, and whatever. I think I pick every woman in my family. If you ask them, they don't talk about this because they have been. I was telling you, I love this movie from DiCaprio called Inception. So they have an idea that was incepted in their mind, and there is no way you can reverse engineer it. It's just like, I'm programmed to be a housewife, do everything I have to. My daughter has to be educated to be good wife, a good mother, clean the house, clean everything. If we have Easter, you put everything.
It also has to be beautiful.
Beautiful, beautiful is not in everywhere, but it's also still very, very. You have to produce yourself the best dress code you can find. Yeah. The children, the mother of my wife always, mother of my daughter always gets very upset with the need that we have to put the kids look like princesses. They have to be all produced. This is an overall kind of mindset problem, right? It's an educational problem.
Yeah, it is, because it's in everything, like the smallest thing. So it's a mindset that is really hard to change, because it starts the moment that they it's in everything. Like it's they for example, I remember seeing my grandmother, like it's breakfast time. She does the breakfast for my grandfather. Then she washes the dishes of her and of him, and then he goes like, we don't know where, and then she is preparing the lunch, and then she has to clean the dishes of the lunch, and then she has to to wash the clothes, and to, I don't know the name in English,
ironing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, into ironing, and then she has to prepare dinner, and then if it's like a special day, she has to prepare something very, very special, and it's always the same thing. If they are just the two of them to have lunch, or if she has like a special lunch with like 10 of us, but she's tired, of course, but she sees that as her job.
Yes.
But so it's in everything. So it's very hard. Sometimes I try to, when I go there and I see something that really shocks me, I try to say something to her and even to him, like, can you help her? See, she's there working since 7 a.m. and, like, try to do something. Both of them are like, just stay quiet, just don't say anything. It's my job. Like, I'm here because I have the right to be here resting while she is working.
Yes, but I have probably a negative or a very pessimist view of changing that generation. I think it's very hard to change that, because it's just so deep in their minds that it's very hard to reverse engineer it. But what I always wonder is, and this goes, I was talking to a YouTube channel a few days ago about educational systems and stuff like that. And this is another thing that I think we are just missing it. We keep on talking about rivers, and keep on talking about train stations and things that are absolutely relevant to our life, because you can find it in Google in 25 seconds. But our programs, our school programs, are still lacking to, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone tells me I'm absolutely wrong, but I just look at the ones that my daughter has. These things are not there. We are not creating content for teachers and for children to be born and raised to know naturally that there is no difference. I have the same duty to wash my dishes as you. There's no difference. There's absolutely no.
Or you have the same duty to take care of your child as I have.
100%. 100. I know. But this is, look, in our generation. Sometimes I'm at home, so I took parental leave for 3 months. So I was with my daughter at home for 3 months when she was born, and so I was on that. And this is like still very shocking for people of our generation. Like, wow, really? Isn't? But
Congratulations.
yes. Oh man,
like really, you know.
And that's ridiculous. It doesn't mean, of course, if the wife prefers to stay at home and the husband, that's fine. But if it's the other way around, it's also fine. It's mostly to do with how do you find yourself in that situation and what is the right.
I also have a problem with the word help, because you are not helping. You as a man, it's your job. So like helping assumes that it's not your job, that you are doing because you want to, because like you are putting yourself in that position of wanting to help, of wanting to do something. Yeah. It's your job, you know.
Yeah, but don't you think in the communication world that maybe the issue is that we generalize too much? For example, maybe I'm going to say something absolutely idiotic, but my father says as a mechanic he has more skills because he's stronger physically, whatever, so he probably can do that job better. Other jobs where you don't have that, maybe a woman can do better. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I don't know the studies. Maybe what we have to do is target communication to different people, right? So if I go to my father and say, my mom can also be a mechanic, he's going to shut down. Because his mind is like, he preconceives the necessary skills of a job as a mechanic to be a strong, big arms, heavy, fit to do the job. So maybe the communication is too much generalized, and therefore you don't. I don't know. I'm just making up. I have no idea.
Yeah. No. Yes. Yeah. And speaking about the books that you were saying about your daughter, I think since we were like really young, the books and the TV series and also the movies, if you watch it like carefully, remember the story is always trying to picture how a woman should behave and how a man should behave, you know. Yes. And I think the changing is not about like you just reaching your father and saying, no, mom also can be a mechanic. I think it's more about showing him like the inequality moments where like the things are really shocking, you know, like if your father is resting in a sofa and he sees your mom like just running to the house, you know, cleaning here, cleaning there, putting some clothes, you know, drying, and then like just trying to tell him something like, you see, mom is working so hard, like maybe we should help her, and just trying to say it as we, you know, maybe we should help, maybe we should. And again, I don't like the word help, but sometimes it's the only word that people can understand, you know, because if you say it's your job, they'll say like, who are you to tell me that, you know? Because even moms, even women, sometimes they are the first to say, no, it's my job, I have to do this. And of course they are tired, but they feel that they are fulfilling their position, you know?
Yeah, I fully agree, but I will go back again to what I was telling you before, and maybe it's me not getting out of it. But I remember some years ago, there was a big scandal in Portugal with the school books. I think 4 or 5 years ago, where there was a very clear, there was the pink book and the blue book or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Yeah. Right? This was all over everywhere because it was massively distinguished between male and female, or between boys and girls. But if you think in detail, there is also today in a lot of places, a lot of books and a lot of information that makes, for example, say that the boy is just a wild, brainless kid jumping around and going against walls and just jumping, and the girl is the smart, sensitive. And to be honest, I have a daughter. I think that's absolutely correct. For the record, I think the boys are just a nightmare for her. But this overall idea also creates a lot of preconceived stereotypes, right? And like the clothes, I always have these discussions. Why do you have to dress pink or blue? Why is that even relevant? Why girls have to do ballet and boys have to go football? My daughter likes to play football, but she also likes ballet, so it doesn't really matter, right? Don't you think that we still have a lot of, we are acting a lot on the later stage? We are acting a lot on how do we change the mindset on elders and or olders or teenagers, but on the lower levels, on the children that will be the future of our generations, we are still very stereotyping.
Yes, we are, and you were speaking about the role of education and the role of, for example, politics. But I would also like to underline the role of all of us, you know, in the things that we ask. Like when someone is pregnant, the first question is it a girl or is that a boy? And then as soon as he or she is born, then it's like, then people are like, no, I need to know. I was like, why do you need to know? I need to know because I want to give some kind of gifts, and I need to know if it's a girl or if it's a boy. Because if it's a girl, I would choose some kind of color, and if it's a boy, I would choose like other kinds of color. It's blue, of course, for the boys, and pink for the girls. Yes. You know, and then so they are setting already the boundaries from day one. Right. And then if you say that the girls are sensitive, are more emotional, are like kind and sweet, and they cannot like just go to in the garden and like just really mess, you are telling them then that they cannot risk, that they cannot try different things, that they cannot try to be wild and free, and you know, you are putting them in a box.
You are pre-formatting them, it's what I was saying.
Exactly. And then boys, if you see things in this way, boys are told since they are really young that they can be free. Actually, they can be wherever they want, except cry. But you know, like they can just go and run, and then if they get like some kind of injuries, that's fine, because they will cure it, and then they will just wake up for another day and being wild and experimenting and trying, you know. So you are telling them, in other words, that they can be whatever they want, you know. So if a girl, when she is a little bit older, when she is on their 13 years old or like 14 years old, if she wants to be an engineer, it would be seen as something that is not for her. Yes. Or if she wants to be an astronaut, or if she wants to, because it's not that kind and sweet, but because also she doesn't see, and one sees many engineers, girls, many scientists, many, you know, so she also starts to believe that being an engineer is not for her, because she doesn't see much of them like her, like women engineers.
Yeah, of course. It's I keep saying this is all about we are human beings, but we keep on programming ourselves to whatever need. But we are programmed since a very child, a very young age. What we can.
We all have preconceptions, you know. And for example, talking about again people in media is done by people. People have preconceptions. People have stereotypes. And we, like, you are an informed person, you have your studies, you have lived in different countries, so I can tell that you are someone that like has a pretty intelligent mindset. You are not someone that is like from like a small context in which you just believe that some deserve opportunities and some don't. But anyway, and I work on these issues. But anyway, I know that I have preconceptions, and every day we have to work on that, you know, because equality is like a muscle, you know. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. But if you stop exercising it, it will also be weak, you know. So every day you have to work on it, like the things you say to your daughter, the things you say at work, the comments you make when someone is getting married, is getting pregnant, when someone is invited to go to your place, to your job. You always have to think: is this an healthy thought? Is this something that is going to produce good feelings in those who are hearing? Is this something that is positive for someone, for the ones that I'm talking to? Because we are every day spreading preconceptions every day.
Yeah, fully agree. And as a last topic I would like to bring, is a bit more controversial, so you can tell me if you are comfortable or not, but it's to do with religion, because you talked about it, right? You mentioned that. So Netherlands, for everyone that doesn't know, Netherlands is kind of Protestant, no real religion to most of the places, to some kind of I don't know. Sometimes I get even very confused about what is exactly driven here. But in Portugal, we are 95, probably more, Catholic or Christian, at least. This has a massive impact in the way we behave, right? Culturally, way of thinking, the way we behave, the way we educate. We are still very much driven to what the Catholics and what the Catholic Church is telling us to do, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I came from a Catholic family, like as many of us, because as you said, Portugal has a really strong path, a Catholic path. But if you go to a church, and sometimes I go there because I want to join my mom or my grand, because they ask me to, and it's okay to go there with them. If you listen to what they say in the Bible, it's always like, sex is a really bad thing. It's gross, and it's just for making babies, making like new. Sorry.
Reproduction.
Exactly. So, what about the lesbian couples? What about the gay couples?
So it's also there, right?
Exactly. So, in that moment, they are the church. They are excluding like a huge amount of people that are here. They might not show themselves as gay or as lesbians, but they exist. And then it's like the wife should behave in a certain way. The wife should take care of the husband. The wife should take care of the kids, and the man, he is like the master of the house. He's the one who should ensure that the things go well. He is the one who knows how to run it. And then the Bible is full of preconceptions No, the Bible is full of ideas of how the woman should behave. Like she should talk as less as she can. She should like be someone quiet and simple. She cannot be someone who has a voice, because then she would attract other men, and then it would like cause some kind of worriness in the house, So, and that's kind of, I don't know, beliefs that the church spreads. Also creates ideas about how women should behave, because they want to be part of the religion, because they really believe in it. So if they want to be part of the group, they have to be that person. They have to act that way. And if they don't, they are making a sin, And then they go to the priest, which is always a man.
Always a man, exactly.
And then the priest has the power to cure them.
Yes.
I'm talking about this way because I'm not like a great believer, and I'm always questioning this kind of beliefs. Like I believe that there is someone, but I don't believe in the church that blames people, that excludes people, because from what I read, Jesus said that everyone is welcomed in his church.
I'm fully with you. I believe in something. I don't believe in institutions. That's what I usually say.
Exactly. So when I hear everyone, I believe that it's everyone, and not just the white women and girls and men, that are heterosexual, that get married and cannot, even if like they beat you or something, you cannot leave your marriage, you cannot get divorced, and then you just can have sex after getting married. And so what about everyone? Because there are many categories that are being missed in this line, what about all the others, so I believe that if Jesus really exists, I believe that he welcomes everyone like from many categories.
I fully agree, and thank you for bringing it up. I usually make this. My mom is Catholic, and I think probably like most of the Marias in Portugal are all Catholic. So but I usually tell her, the Catholic Church is a bunch of hypocrites. With all the respect I have from the people that believes on that. So my mom's and your mom, it's fine. Those are believers, and we have to respect them. But the institution itself, and I even like Pope Francis. It's a cool guy. But a lot of things have not changed. It's still a bunch of men that kind of tells you what you should and shouldn't do. And we keep saying, for example, Muslims are bad people because they are terrorists, which is interesting because it's just, and we do no different than Muslims. We are also discriminatory. We also define preconceived ideas.
And I believe that a priest that is a pedophile, he is a terrorist.
Yeah, it's the same. Exactly. Absolutely. So we should stop judging the others and looking at, I always like this movie from Michael Jackson, The Man in the Mirror.
Yeah.
It's like, let's start by the man in the mirror and think and forget the problems on the other's house, in the house of the others is not my problem, but we have to start looking by ours before we start pointing to someone else. So, Catarina, I just look at the time now, and I think we are going out of time. We are not going out of time, but I just for the sake of time for people to also not get lost in the time. The last thing I would like to ask you, well, let's say the last two things I would like to ask you is the first is, how do you think this will change over the next 10 years? If you were to be a oracle, what do you think is going to happen next 10 years? In a more generic way, because it's hard to make it tangible for every single country, every single culture. And the last thing is, what I like people to do is a little bit like Daniel Oliveira, but in a different way. Is what do you like people to take home and think about? So this project is not about broadcasting brands. It's about getting people to change mindsets and talk about things that we don't usually talk on the day-to-day. So I like to leave a message for people to go home, think about it, maybe change their mind, maybe not, maybe do some research, but to become a bit more informed about things. So those are the two last things I want you to talk about.
Yeah, great. So 10 years from now, I'm definitely no good at predicting things, but I would say that I can see many movements being huge now. Like since Me Too, you have many women groups from all over the world, even in Africa, from Black women are trying to be known. And today with the social media, you can access to different realities just in some seconds. Mm-hmm. And I believe that 10 years from now, you will see and you will have access to many realities that now you don't know unless you travel to there. So I believe that even though I think there are going to be many challenges, like worldwide, about the white extremists and right extremists and people that are trying to abolish the things that we are already being given. For example, in Poland, you have many movements trying to ban abortion, not just in Poland, in other countries. They are trying to reverse the abortion rights. So even though there are some points of extremists that are being that are urging now, I believe that 10 years from now you will have many women groups and many LGBTI groups that are showing up because they have more ways to do it, more platforms to do it. And I want to believe that those movements and our knowledge about those movements is going to have an impact in our lives. For example, in Portugal, you have plenty of groups now. of LGBTI people, of girls' rights, like people that are on their 21 years old, 22 years old, from universities, he for she, small groups, in universities, they are creating something, they are doing conferences, they are doing live shows. So I'm really confident, I'm really optimistic. And about a message to give you, I would say that change is about us. So we can talk about politics or about economics, like if it's something like really, away from us, but everything is done for people and by people. So if we, at our houses, at our jobs, at our small communities, in the walks that we do on Sunday, when we can, now we can't, but like we will again. If we try to have this mindset of trying to create change, trying to challenge some kind of behavior, trying to challenge some kind of belief, if all of us do it, change will happen, So that's what I try to do. We cannot see ourselves as someone that is really tolerant and someone who is smart and who is, with a really strong mindset and really new mindset. But all of us are contributing to this unequal world. So if we try to do something to change it, all of us, it will change.
Okay. Sounds like a powerful message. It's depending on every one of us to do something. It's not just someone else. It's what I usually tell my mom. It's not always someone else's fault. So we can also do something.
Exactly.
Catarina, great pleasure. Thank you very much. I think it was a fantastic conversation. I hope people enjoy it as much as I do. I always tell this at the end of the podcast, but it's still true. What depends on me, I will keep trying to bring these things up because maybe I have a daughter and now it kind of makes me think a little bit more about it. I think we need to do a lot more, and everyone needs to do a lot more.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.